Hello, my name is Darren Thomas and I am the Director of Educational Research Techniques. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at trigonometric equations and how to solve them, some basic ones. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, before we begin, we need to make sure that when you're trying to solve for trigonometric equations, often you're trying to find answers associated with the unit circle. And so for the examples in this video, the answer will always be some sort of an angle that is associated with the unit circle. This just makes it simpler in terms of computing for practical reasons. And so as you probably already know, you know that the x value on the unit circle is going to be the cosine value, and you know that the y value is going to be the sine value. That'll be important in a few seconds. So let's go ahead and take a look at our first example here. So we're going to have the following equation: 2 sine x plus 1 equals 0. Now this is not that complicated. You're just using basic algebra skills to deal with this. I'm sorry, I made a mistake. You're just using basic algebra skills to solve this. You just do what you learned in high school basically and solve the answer. And then once you finally get an answer, it gets a little bit more complicated than that. So here we go. This is what we're going to do first. We're going to subtract 1 from both sides. And so now we got 2 sine x equals -1. And then after that, we divide both sides by 2, like that. And so then we have sine x equals -1/2. So that, you could stop here. And so what we could do now is we go to our unit circle and we look for sine of -1/2. And you can clearly see that, again, now remember we're doing sine, so it's going to be the y value. You can clearly see that one of our answers is going to be right here. So 11 pi over 6. And another one of our answers will be over here, and that'll be 7 pi over 6. Those are the two potential answers there. Now, I'm going to show you now how to kind of to finish this by using some other skill sets. Now, we know what the answer is, and we know that it's 330 degrees or 210 degrees, because that's what we found on the unit circle in the previous slide. Now, here's what we're going to do now. We have this sine of x. In order to solve for x here, we have to do the inverse of the sine function. That's how we're able to remove this guy right here. So if we do arc sine of -1/2, we'll be able to get the answer. So the only way to do that now for our purposes is to just use a calculator. So I use a sine here, and I do -1/2 like that, and then that's when we get our answer in radians. All right, now you can see that it's negative. So in order to have success with this, we have to make it positive. So we add 2 pi to it. Now again, this has to do with coterminal angles, if you will. So we add 2 pi, and now we get 5.75. So we're almost done. We now have our answer in radians and positive radians, and there's one more thing that we have to do. We have to convert this from radians to degrees. And you can see there that we get our answer 330 degrees. Now, this is one of the answers that we saw previously. If you look back here, you can see right here that we have this answer 330 degrees. So we're able to get one of the answers using the calculator. But to have success, you have to, you look at the unit circle and see that the two potential answers there. All right, so that's kind of how you are able to do that. All right, so why don't we go ahead and move. All right, so that is one way to handle it. So let's do one more and kind of wrap up the video. So now we're going to be doing the following. We're going to be doing tangent of x equals the square root of 3. Again, this is pretty much done for you already. So all we got to do now is we just have to do the inverse of the tangent function. So we do arctan. That way we're able to remove this guy right here, and then we're able to get the answer here. So if I do arctan, I'll just clear this. arctan and I have the square root of 3. So I press enter and I get 1.04. That doesn't tell me much yet because that's in radians. Now to have success with this, I need to convert this to degrees, if you will. Alright, so to do that, just put in my parentheses and I put radians to degrees. And you can see right there that I get 60 degrees. And so what is 60 degrees in the unit circle? I go back here. 60 degrees in the unit circle is pi over 3. You can see right here, pi over 3. So my answer is going to be basically 1.04 here, and then when I convert that to degrees, it'll be 60 degrees. And if I really want to get the exact radians, because 1.04 doesn't mean much to me, I could also call this pi over 3, and that's how it works out. Now to be complete, you have to put the plus or minus here, and it has to be 2 pi times k. Again, this is for adjusting for coterminal angles. So if you have something beyond 2 pi or less than 2 pi, you would include this in the actual answer to complete the equation. And so that's pretty much how it works. So you can see that most of the steps for solving a trigonometric equation just involves the basic rules for solving an equation, with the added twist of dealing with the inverse function of whatever trigonometric function you're working with, sine, cosine, or tangent. And that's kind of what's happening here. So let me go back and recap and then wrap up the video. So in this video, we learned about how to deal with trigonometric equations. And so we started by looking at the unit circle because in this particular video, the answers are going to mostly come from there. And so you know that the cosine is going to be the x value on the unit circle, and the sine is going to be the y value on the unit circle. And so we started with our first example here, and basically you just kind of go through all the steps of a regular equation, but then at the end you have to start working with your inverse functions in order to remove the sine equation, the sine function. So sine of x, in order to remove that, you got to do the inverse of it. So arc sine. And so that's how you're able to find the answers. And so many times there's more than one answer, and you have to be aware of that, like you saw in our first example. In this second example, it's the same basic concept. So now we're using the tangent function. And this one was already pretty simplified for us already. All we had to do was the inverse of the tangent function, so arctangent, and we were able to get the answer. And the actual decimal value was 1.04, but if you convert that, that would be pi over 3, or you can also put it in degrees at 60 degrees. And that is essentially how you do this. So, my name is Darren Thomas. I hope that this video made sense. You were able to understand it. I am the Director of Educational Research Techniques. Take care.